10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff of the Falcon 9 and Crew Dragon. Go NASA, go SpaceX, Godspeed, Bob and Doug.
NASA used to be the only organization that was permitted to send humans to space, a responsibility that weighed the organization down a bit. But today, the narrative has been changed, making space travel easier. In fact, a rocket from SpaceX went on another mission on the 3rd of June 2020, and thereby setting new frontiers and making history. Before you run off to build a rocket and zap yourself into the skies, here is some behind-the-scene information about the SpaceX launch and space travel in general that you should be aware of. Trust me, you would be pretty amazed by what you are about to discover. So why delay the inevitable? Hit that like and subscribe icon now, and let's go! Number 10. About SpaceX. Before we take this trip behind the scenes, here is what we know about SpaceX. Space Exploration Technologies Corporation, also known as SpaceX, is an American aerospace company. They offer space transportation and aerospace design and manufacturing services. Based in California, it was founded in 2002 by popular billionaire engineer and innovator Elon Musk. It was one of the two companies that won NASA's multi-billion-dollar contracts to start and build a spaceship program to ferry American astronauts to the International Space Station from U.S. soil. This contract was worth $7.9 billion, with Boeing taking the larger share, leaving SpaceX with $3.1 billion. Although having a lesser share, SpaceX still beat Boeing in the race and became the first private company to send U.S. astronauts to space. Number 9. Meet the astronauts. Astronauts Douglas Hurley and Robert Bob Behnken were graduates of the NASA class of 2000. 2 out of the 17 graduates from that year. Doug is a retired U.S. Marine Corps colonel who served as a fighter pilot in the Navy and in the later years of his career became a test pilot and flew aircraft such as the FA-18EF Super Hornet, a more advanced version of the FA-18 Hornet. He holds a degree in mechanical engineering and is married to fellow astronaut Karen Nyberg from the same class of 2000. Bob Behnken is both an astronaut and a colonel with the U.S. Air Force, serving as technical manager and developmental engineer. Before getting assigned to the F-22 Combined Test Force, he has over 1,500 flight hours in the cockpit of over 25 aircrafts and has spent more than 700 hours in space. He is married to Megan MacArthur, who is also an astronaut at NASA. Number 8. Preparations they went through. Training for a space mission has got to be one of the most grueling processes, as they have to be properly oriented and conditioned for the situations they would be faced with during their spacecraft launch, their time in space, landing, and all other phases of the mission. Despite their military background, our astronauts still received physical training under a lot of simulated environments, geared at refreshing their memories about space, since they were both veteran astronauts. They also received training on the kinds of experiments they would be performing in space, and various debriefings about the mission. They underwent dozens of medical tests and had been in isolation since March to prevent COVID-19 infection. Needless to say, they were primed to perfection. Number 7. About the rocket. To be able to propel a spacecraft into orbit, you need massive amounts of thrust. Needless to say, you cannot achieve the 850,000 pounds of thrust the Falcon 9 rocket used in this launch achieved, without burning massive loads of fuel. At full power, the Falcon 9 burns 32,000 pounds of fuel per second. The rocket's thrust is needed for 158 seconds, which translates to over 5 million pounds of supercooled liquid oxygen and kerosene. It stretches over 229.6 feet and weighs well over 1.3 million pounds. Its 9 Merlin engines gives it a top speed of 24,600 miles per hour at full power. It is partially reusable and has been involved in 27 successful missions, including satellite launches and cargo delivery, but this is its first trip with humans. Number 6. About the Crew Dragon. And now, Let's take a peek into the cabin of this iconic machine, the center of attention. Perched atop the Falcon 9, the Crew Dragon looked like the tip of a very long arrow. It has the space for up to 7 passengers and is even spacious enough for a nap, as reported by Bob and Doug. The Crew Dragon, or rather Endeavour, named by the astronauts, features 16 Draco thrusters, which produces 1,440 pounds of thrust, and they play a major role in its second phase of separation. It uses the push method instead of the older pull method, where the capsule is pulled upwards after detaching. That is not the only system the Endeavour comes with. It also features an automatic docking system, instead of the old style of using a robotic arm to latch onto the space station. It also has its solar panels built into its trunk, instead of an extendable wings, and heat removal radiators with a heat-resistant outer body to prevent it from going up in flames upon re-entry into the atmosphere during their return trip. It has a state-of-the-art touchscreen panel control that can be used even with the astronauts' gloves on. Number 5. How much did this cost? After looking at the cost of fuel, production costs, and other logistics, it comes as no surprise that space travel cost several millions. American engineer and the world's first private astronaut, Dennis Tito, had to shell out a shocking $20 million for just 8 days in space in 2001. The co-founder of Cirque du Soleil, Guy Laliberty, spent $35 million for a chance to see the International Space Station in 2009. Building a new Falcon 9 cost $62 million. To reuse is an astounding $50 million, which includes fuel costs. In total, a standard SpaceX mission would cost $58 million, which is cheaper than the $450 million NASA has to cough up for every mission. This includes the $80 million per seat that the United States pays to Russia to use their Soyuz spacecraft. Number 4. Tests carried out. Sending humans to space is really risky stuff. A million things could go wrong, from engine failure to software malfunction. Ultimately, the astronauts could end up getting lost in space or being used to roast marshmallows by aliens after they go up in flames. One of the major tests carried out is on the emergency abort system. In a case of engine or software failure, the astronauts can instantly abort the mission, detach the capsule, and plunge back to Earth. On January 19, 2020, an abort test was carried out, which involved intentionally causing one of the rockets to malfunction and explode. The outcome of this test put smiles on the faces of those in charge. Number 3. Mission objectives. Needless to say, the astronauts didn't go for a meet and greet with the aliens. They went for some serious space stuff. After a small welcome party hosted by their fellow American Chris Cassidy and his 2 Russian comrades, Anatoly Ivanishin and Ivan Vanner, they would proceed to help them in their experiments and relieve them of a few responsibilities. They may even have to take spacewalks outside the station to do some maintenance work. They may have to spend between 30 to 120 days, depending on the work cut out for them. Number 2. The first launch was canceled. A successful launch is dependent on a number of things, including weather. Clear skies and a calm sea are very necessary. Initial launch time was 4:33 p.m., May 27th, but Mother Nature thought this was a bad idea and sent some clouds to discourage them, which is why it was the crew that opted for the first backup time, which was 3:22 p.m. on Saturday. The sad part is, launch was canceled just 17 minutes to takeoff. The astronauts must have felt the strain of the anxiety and adrenaline. Yeesh. And number 1, mission control. Now this is the real behind the scenes. These are the guys that labor day and night to make sure that each launch is perfect and nothing goes wrong. They are definitely the most important people behind the scenes. They spend 75% of their time planning, organizing, and smoothing out every wrinkle in the fabric of the launch plan. They are divided into 2 teams, the ground team and the flight control team. The ground team gathers the data, then the flight control team determines the next step. Every single person on these teams is crucial to the success of the launch.